Hey, everyone. Good morning. Hello, live on multiple platforms. If you are here, as you join in, say hello. Give me a hello. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a I'm here. I can hear ya. All the tech's working well. Good to see you here. It's sure good to be back. Very good to be back. I know I missed last week. Sorry. Gosh, it's funny because I really wanted to go live last week, and it's one of those things where sometimes you just have to section off your brain into different areas of working. And I was such in a zone with what I was doing that I think I probably would have given a horrible live if I would have shown up, because I just wasn't in the zone that I needed to be in. But I do, first and foremost, I want to thank all of you that have been writing notes in. I know some of you I haven't responded to. It's just been a lot, but writing in your wishes, your support with everything that's been going on with me. I had my stepdad pass away, for those of you that don't know. And although he was 88 years old and not well, okay, but he never cleaned my mom's stuff out of the house when she died 7 years ago of cancer. So I have this house, and it's full of all sorts of stuff that I have to go through. So it's just been a lot. Do I have anyone? I see a bunch of people on Instagram, so I know I'm good over there. But if you guys could give me hearts and thumbs up that you're hearing me okay, all the tech is working, that would be awesome. As far as Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, if you guys could tell me you're there, all my stuff is coming through, that would be awesome. I think I see someone out there, but I can't tell. So I just want to make sure you guys can hear me before I start jumping into my content for the day. And then we'll take questions, live Q&A questions. If you are new here, if you've never seen my live before, say hello, say hey, and tell me where you're from, okay? So I had a lot of new followers. Oh, hey, Jim, how's it going? I had a bunch of new people follow me in the last week or so, but I've had 2 podcasts released. So perhaps some of you are from there. If you are, say hello. So nice to have you. Welcome. This is a live Q&A. I will take questions on really any topic. If it's in regards to stress, even better. But I did want to talk about something, first of all, because despite being so busy, I was like, okay, this is the one time where I would have a pass on dance class, right? So if I am so busy cleaning out this house, I've got all this stuff going on, I've got all these arrangements to make for his death and this type of thing, you would think, I think most of us would probably say, oh, forget it, we're not going to the gym, or we're not doing our workout. Well, I did not do that. I went to my workouts. I went to 2 dance classes on Monday, 2 dance classes last night. I can barely get down the stairs because my legs hurt so bad, but I went to one last night, and I had a friend go with me, and she asked me, she said, and she hadn't danced in a very long time. And she asked me, she said, so this is going to help my brain and dementia, right? The fact that I'm learning this routine. And I was like, it does actually. There's actually statistical research on dance and lowering dementia risk, improving Parkinson's symptoms, and actually clearing up brain fog, improving neuroplasticity. Dance affects multiple areas of the brain. And the reason being is that, if you think about it, okay, it's kind of like a double whammy. You've got the benefits of music to the brain, right? Music stimulates certain parts of the brain. Movement stimulates certain parts of the brain, right? Sensory stimulates certain parts of the brain. And then deep in the midbrain, it puts them all together to make them all talk to each other, right? So when you're doing dance, you're not only having the music aspect, you're also having the physical aspect, and you're also having this interaction of all these different parts of the brain in voluntary movement, right? So if I want to pick up a coffee cup, we don't think about it, but our brain says, we want to pick up that coffee cup. Reach out your arm and pick it up and bring it to your mouth, right? And for any of you that have had neurological disorders or have family members with neurological disorders, even dementia and Parkinson's, I've had, my grandparents had dementia, and they got to a point where they couldn't pick up a coffee cup because their brain couldn't tell them to do so, right? Or they couldn't speak. They get aphasia because their brain says, I want to talk, but it doesn't communicate to come out of the mouth, right? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Are you with me? Thumbs up, hearts, yes? Oh my gosh, I made Instagram do fireworks. How did I do that? I do that all the time. How do I do that? Can someone tell me how I do that? Was it the heart? Like, what was that? Anyway, are you guys with me? So these are things we don't really think about, that when we're younger and we have a ton of neuroplasticity in our brain, we just kind of take, we just don't think about it, And these are things that are really important. So how do we improve and continue to use our brains in a way that prevents that from ever happening? And oddly enough, dance is one of those things. And this is one of the reasons why I dance. It's not simply for physical exercise. It's not simply for the joy of moving to music, which in itself is worth it. It's also keeping my brain talking to other parts of my brain. We're not just using one part. And I don't want to get like overly involved in the chemistry of this because it can get very wordy and confusing. But when they've actually done PET imaging on the brain to identify the areas of the brain that are involved in dance, and performance. So the motor cortex, which is planning, control, and execution of movement. Okay. The somatosensory cortex, which is in the middle of the brain, does motor control and hand-eye coordination. The basal ganglia, which is deep in the midbrain, work to smoothly coordinate the movement between those other areas of the brain. And the cerebellum integrates the input from the brain and the spinal cord, which helps with that fine-tuning of that movement, right? And they've shown that even when they've looked at this against other physical activities, because people would argue, oh, it's not the dance, it's probably just the physical activity. Physical activity plays a huge role in reduction of dementia as well, but they actually compared in this study different types of physical activity, cycling, golf, swimming, tennis, but found that only dance lowered the participants' risk of dementia. The others didn't, right? And they said it's because it involves both a mental effort and a social interaction and a physical interaction. So think about that. When you dance, there's a social interaction there. There's been tons of studies on people who are very involved socially, have a community, talk to each other, have friends, good support staff, live longer, right? There was a lot of studies on friendship and loneliness. And when you have a really good friend, I think my best friend's out there. When you have a really good friend and you have people to talk to, your life actually extends. It actually extends your life. Dance involves all these different areas. It involves social interaction with the people you're dancing with, but it also involves a little bit of social interaction with the music, right? So, and it has the physical aspect and it has the mental stimulation. So my point is, we're allowed to have fun when we work out. And dancing is one of the ways that you can just benefit not only your physical fitness, but you can also benefit your health. And because it benefits your brain and your nervous system to such an extent, it also reduces stress on the body. And guess what? As we reduce stress on the body, we have more physical movement, we have better community. Guess what we get? Longer, healthier, more vibrant lives, period. And that doesn't involve any medication, that doesn't involve any supplements, right? Dancing you can do in your kitchen. Doesn't even really involve any money, right? It involves you reaching out to people in your community. It involves you turning on some music, and it involves you moving. Now, I don't know. Do I have any dancers out there? Or are you guys all like, I don't like to dance? Who likes to dance? Who doesn't like to dance? Yes, no. Ready, go. Yes, no. Yes, no. Give it to me. Yes, I'm a dancer. No, I'm not. I'm going to wait for it. Come on, start commenting. I have a challenge coming up. Actually, let's call it an experience. 5-day, yes, hearts, yeah, dancers, right? I have a 5-day experience coming up. It is free. Susan loves dancing. All right, Patty dances. I love it. It's free. It's 5 days. One of the days does have some dance in it. And here's the thing, though. I don't want you to be perfect at it. I don't want you to be. I just want you to love it. I just want you to have fun with it. I just want you to let your body go. I want you to connect your brain with your body. And if you can do it with a friend, if you can do this challenge with a friend, that would be fun, right? So if you have not already signed up for the challenge, I've just started promoting it. So if this is brand new to you, you can go to my link in bio on Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn as well, YouTube. If you comment, I can send you the link to it. Anyway, I have a challenge coming up. It's September 9 through 12. Every single day, little tiny bite size tips and little daily challenges to help reduce the stress so that you can start generating more energy. You can't generate energy with a supplement. I hear this all the time. We'll take this for energy. It doesn't work that way. If you don't calm the nervous system, if you don't get the nervous system in balance to be working for you, it doesn't matter what you take. Your energy is not going to come back. You have to address the nervous system, and dance is one way to do that. And therefore, day number 2 is, guess what, guys? It's dance. And it's free, and it's meant to be fun. So all of you have asked for some sort of fun challenge or something fun. I'm doing it for you. You asked for it. I've got it. It's awesome. It's called the Total Energy Reboot. Go to the link in bio, sign up. And on day 5, it also includes a masterclass, which is included if you sign up for the challenge for free, on how to 10x your life and your energy. So I would love to have you all in there. I would love to have you all dancing with me. I'm going live every single day, and we're talking about the challenge and getting feedback and questions and things like that. And I'm way excited for it. So dance like no one is watching, Susan said. Yeah, it's not about doing it perfectly. I've been dancing for 8-9 years in a classroom setting since I went back. I danced when I was younger. And it took me a good 2 years before I could really get down choreography. And now, even though I can get the choreography, I don't necessarily look good doing it all the time. So now I'm really working on performing it. It's like there's always a level. There was actually another study that went really deep into the different aspects of dance. So like learning it, just doing grooving, which really doesn't have a routine. It's just kind of, you hear the music and you just kind of groove, right? Tons of research on that and benefits of Parkinson's and dementia, by the way. You don't even have to do a routine. You just have to groove. That's it, right? And for those of you that don't want to do a routine during the challenge, you can just groove along with me. That's cool. Like, that's all good. Awesome. Do it. But they also went into performing dance, gets another level of brain neuroplasticity. So it's even a whole nother level of that. They even went into watching dance, watching someone else dance also has a benefit on the brain and reduction of stress. So all around, I think it's a good thing. So join me for those of you. If you just joined in, I have a 5-day reboot challenge coming up free. Go to my link in bio. Okay. Cool. All right. I see some questions coming in, so I'm going to open up for questions. I didn't see anyone new. No one said, hey, I'm new here, and gave me their name or where they're from. If you are new here, introduce yourself. I love to meet new people. This is about community. And I know many of you may have just recently joined from the podcast I did with Dr. Jen Simmons. If you have not had an opportunity to listen to that podcast, it was a great conversation. I released 2 last week, Jill Foos Wellness and Dr. Jen Simmons, both of which were great interviews, a little bit different direction in both, even though there's some overlaps of stories, but really good conversation, really interesting when we talk about cancer and breast health in Jen Simmons' podcast, because stress plays a huge role in cancer, and it plays a huge role in toxin removal. And so the oncologists are like, well, cancer has a huge toxic component, right? There's a toxin in the body typically in some way, or a lack of detoxification where the immune system becomes impacted. Stress has a direct impact on that. So if you guys have any questions about that after listening to these podcasts, bring them at me. Like, let's talk about it. Okay. I do see some questions, so I'm going to dive into those. If you have more questions, pop them down. I'm actually going to bring a friend of mine on my live in the upcoming weeks to talk about cancer and immune system. Just saw him this morning, and he had some cool statistics on that we want to share with you. So on probiotics and cancer prevention. So I'm looking to set that up with him. If I can get him on one of these Friday lives, I'll bring him on and we'll talk about that. Would you guys like that? You guys are quiet today. Do I need to make the fireworks go off again? How did I do it? And then I never know how to do it. Sometimes I'm just talking and the fireworks on Instagram just go off. I don't know. Nope, I can't do it. Oops. All right. Braden has a question here. Hi, Dr. Pingle. Hi. Nice to see you. I am getting prolotherapy in my neck. What supplementation will help with joint health? Well, those are 2 different things. Prolotherapy in the neck can be a bit risky. Now, I'm not saying people don't do it, but make sure you have a really good provider to do that. Very close to the spinal cord. So just putting that out there. But prolotherapy, the purpose of prolotherapy is to inject a solution, whether you're doing like a sugar solution or whether you're doing PRP where you're putting your platelets in, but injecting a solution in order to generate a healing response. So it's going to cause an inflammatory response, and it's supposed to cause an inflammatory response. So you would not want to take some of the supplements for joint health that are anti-inflammatories for a certain length of time. So you'd want to talk to your physician about that, because there's a certain length of time that you're supposed to let it inflame. I'm not a specialist in that. Now, my husband has had prolotherapy. Like, I've gone through the process as a patient, I guess, watching a patient, but I know there was a certain length of time, like 7 to 10 days or 2 weeks or something, where he can't take any sort of anti-inflammatory. As far as joint health, some of the best things you can do are dietary, movement. Pilates is fantastic for joint health. Omega-3 fatty acids are great for lubrication of the joints. Kind of depending on what the underlying issue is. I mean, prolotherapy doesn't heal the joint. It heals the tendons and the structures that hold the joint together. So things like collagen might not be a bad idea, but I'd probably talk to your doctor about anti-inflammatories, because there's usually a point where you can't do things like turmeric and some of these other anti-inflammation joint supplements because you want it to inflame. Does that help? Okay. Ways to build strength while eating plant-based. Okay. Build up strength while eating plant-based. I don't see why you couldn't. I personally, I'm a Pilates lover, and I'm going to tell you a story about Pilates, okay? Because we were talking about dementia and aging. So I'm going to tell a story. I have a friend of my stepdad. He's in his 80s, and he came to help me clean out the garage last weekend. And very nimble, very quick, very fit, great body weight, great muscle mass, right? Was able to get up on ladders with me, haul things down. And he's in his 80s, like, I mean, and unbelievable. And I said to him, I said, you know, it's funny. My kids mentioned something. They said, wow, how come he's so fit and yet Pop was not, you know, and died because he had a lot of chronic disease and he wasn't able to walk and things like that. And I said, well, you know, it's different ways that you take care of yourself. So I asked this friend, I said, so my kids wanted to know, what do you do to stay so fit in your 80s and be so just on top of it mentally and physically? And he said, you know what the key is? He said, 3 days a week, Pilates. He goes, I'm more flexible. I'm stronger than I've ever been in my entire life. Now, this goes against what most people think. First of all, men don't always think, oh, I'm going to go to Pilates. They should, because Pilates builds your core. It builds your stabilization muscles. It builds your flexibility. It also, and this is the important part, kind of tying into the dance thing, it brings the brain and the body together. So it's also helping with neuroplasticity of the brain, keep the brain sharp, to reduce brain fog. There's more than just exercise there. So when we're just lifting weights, when we're just, you know, doing weights, we can almost do that mindlessly, right? I mean, you might think, okay, put my shoulders back and do it, but you're not really challenging the brain to do something other than what you've already been trained to do. But in Pilates, when you're trying to put an arm up here with a leg up here and your head over here and breathe at the same time, you're having to put multiple areas of your brain together. And when you do that, you're also improving your brain health. So he said it's Pilates, and I have to agree with him. So when you're plant-based, there's no reason why you can't build muscle. There's tons of vegan athletes out there. So I think it's more about, are you getting enough protein? Are you keeping your stress low? Is your inflammation low? Are you flexible and strong? And how are you built? Like, I'm not built to put on a ton of muscle. I'm a tiny person. I have tiny muscles, and I work out, and I don't think they'll really get a whole heck of a lot bigger in my life, but that's okay. So it's also how you're built. Some of us just don't put on muscle as much, but I can get my proportion of muscle to fat into the right ratio. Does that make sense? Did that help? Would love to hear that guest. I will tell him. I will text him after this, and I will say, they want you to come and talk about cancer and reduction of cancer and probiotics and things like that. So I will bring him on. You guys all put, I'll tag him in this, but you should all put in the comments, come on, Dr. Pasenka. Come on, Dr. Jake. Let's call him Dr. Jake. Bring on Dr. Jake. You could say that in the comments, and then I can forward it to him and say, see, they all want you. It says, bring on Dr. Jake. What would cause a high RDW CV and RDW SD when rest of blood work is in normal range? Okay, well, let's talk about what RDW is. right? So RDW is found on your general blood count. Now, this is something that's run, I hope, every year by your physician, which looks for, they call it an anemia screening test, right? So they look at your white blood cells, your red blood cells, right? And the breakdowns of those. That's what this test does. And one of those numbers is called the RDW, and there's two different ones, but we're just going to talk about it in general because it's the same answer either way. RDW. And so RDW is the regeneration of the red blood cells. So typically, if there's an anemia or you're recovering from an anemia, you'll see an increase of RDW, right? So because the blood cells are trying to keep up. So if there's never been an anemia, now I'm not a hematologist, okay? This does not constitute medical advice. This is just educational, okay? So in general, the RDW means if it's elevated, it means that the red blood cells are regenerating more and more and more, okay? So they're trying to make more red blood cells. So to me, why would the body want to make more red blood cells? Well, it would want to make more red blood cells if it doesn't feel like it has enough oxygen, right? Or it doesn't feel like it can carry oxygen to tissues. Now, anemia is one of those reasons why that would happen. If you've been screening it regularly, you've never seen signs of anemia, then it's time to say, well, why else would I not have oxygen perfusion, right? Are there areas in my body that are not getting enough oxygen? Am I breathing well? What's going on there, right? Obviously, you always want to, if there's something that's not resolving, it's never a bad idea to have your doctor look at it on a slide or send it to a hematologist for a second opinion. But it basically just means that the red blood cells are trying to regenerate. This is a recovery mechanism. So sometimes it's temporary. Sometimes maybe there's a loss of blood for something like, let's say you had surgery or for some you had a bleeding ulcer or something to that effect, and you're trying to regenerate and repair, or you had an anemia and you've been taking iron or B12 or whatever you need and it's gotten better. They may still regenerate for a while to build up that red blood cell count. So it's basically keeping your red blood cells at a normal level. That's what it's trying to do. Does that make sense, Carol? Why it's happening in you, I mean, it takes so much more investigation than this, but that's kind of the general idea why it would be doing that. Why it's low or why the body feels it's low in red blood cells would be the thing to investigate. Yeah, you with me? You're welcome. I love Pilates. It changed my life. You're already doing then so much that you need to do for your joint health. Pilates is incredible for that type of thing. Great story. Hopefully that story will inspire other people. Oh, thank you. You mentioned being cautious getting Prolo in the neck. Can you elaborate? Well, Prolo is the needle and it's going near your spine. Right? I mean, I'm not saying people don't do it, right? People get epidurals to have babies and things like that, but there's always a risk when you're injecting a solution close to the spine, right? There's a very well-known health influencer that had prolotherapy done to the spine and lost the use of his legs. Now they came back because he worked hard, but he got an infection in there, right? So you just have to be very mindful. It's a little bit of a risky area. It doesn't mean it's not done, but I wouldn't do it without really serious thought, consideration, and a very talented person. Yeah? Okay. Nobody said bring on Dr. Jake. How am I going to tell him? All right. I did have a question, I think, over on Facebook. Where is everyone on Facebook today? Where are you guys? Are you on vacation? Are you doing something fun? Instagram, I caught up. So keep the questions coming because I'm going to come right back to you. So start rolling them out there. I'm taking them in first order. I got ring on Dr. Jake. Want to hear you, Dr. Jake. I love it. Oh, hi. Hi, Stephen from YouTube. Pleasure. Nice to meet you. Okay, I have a question. How to fight shingles. Can I talk about the word fight for a second? Why do we fight? Why don't we just nurture? Right? So you have a virus in your body, shingles, right? And the shingles is spreading, right? The immune system at this point is trying to squash it, but we don't have to fight. We have to give into the process a little bit. You have to support the immune system so it can remove shingles. First of all, let's talk about why shingles happens. Okay. Number one, shingles is a herpes virus that's latent in the body, same as the chickenpox virus. It's varicella, and it stays in the nervous system, and it is brought out typically by stress. Okay, stress on the system. Now, when I say stress, you guys that follow me all the time know I'm not just talking about a life event. You could say, but I'm fine. William, you could say, I don't have any stress right now. I don't know what you're talking about. I feel fine. There could be stress internally. Are you diabetic? Do you have high blood pressure? Are you nutrient deficient, right? Are your hormones moving around? Like stress can happen to the body in so many different ways, whether it's external or internal. Okay. So our body has some sort of stress. It triggers this virus. At that point, it's really hard because at this point, you just have to let it run its course. Ideally, we would be preventing it in the first place by addressing the stress response, making sure the body has high nutrition. We're supporting gut health. So once you already have it, one of my favorite remedies are IV Myers cocktails. There's also some benefit to lysine. Using lysine, you'll have to talk to your doctor about how to dose that. And obviously, there are antiviral medications you can take. The most important thing is definitely don't touch your face. Try to keep it covered so that you're not spreading it. And the most dangerous place for shingles to go is really in the mucous membranes, in the eyes, nose, mouth, those types of things. So keep it away from that area. And then once you've had it, just keep in mind something triggered it. So now it's possible to, now you want to find a physician and say, look, I've had a shingles outbreak. What can I do to prevent it? Right, in the future? Why did my body let this virus come out? And what can I do? So for me, I use a lot of different herbs. I'm taking one right now. Maybe you guys know Cellcore Para 3, which is an antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial blend of herbs. You can more regularly work in different types of herbal therapies and rotate them. Gut support like probiotics, definitely stress reduction techniques and finding any imbalances in the body. These will all prevent it from coming back. And it's painful, so I'm sorry you're going through that. I hope that helps. What is your feeling about shingles and RSV vaccines, especially for people with autoimmune diseases? You know what? I don't group everyone into the same box when it comes to autoimmune disease. You guys aren't all the same. In fact, every single one of you has a different collection of symptoms. That's what autoimmune is. So you could take 2 celiacs and they have totally different symptoms. You could take 2 rheumatoid patients and they have totally different symptoms. So I can't put vaccines all in one box either. There's pros and cons in many different situations. So I think that would be more an individualized question. My stance on vaccines in general is you need to look at the risks and benefits of the individual person and decide, number one, what makes sense for your health? And number two, how would you feel if you didn't take one, if you didn't get a vaccine and you got the disease? I have a lot of people who are against vaccines, but then they won't get them and then they get the disease and then they get really mad at themselves and beat themselves up over it, right? So you have to decide where do you stand on it, right? Can you take care of the body without? Yes. There's many different things we can do. Do you need the immunization? No, right? Is it an option? Yes. But you got to look, and hopefully you have a doctor that'll go back and forth with you on this. Because I could think in numerous autoimmune cases where I've absolutely said, no, do not do that. And I have other autoimmune cases where I've said, that is fine if you personally want to do it. They're all different. Definitely look at gut health and autoimmune. That's the first place you start every single time. And so that's where I look. The immune system is in the gut, guys. Same. He's getting me on it. He's asking me a lot of vaccine questions. You're trying to get me kicked off, aren't you? He's asking about the flu one. I mean, the flu changes constantly. Constantly. You can't keep up with it. So we all get the same one. Right? Guess what it's going to do? It's going to mutate. It's done. It's wasted, right? So like, now, if you're, severely immunocompromised, hospitalized in a, maybe there's a different scenario, you know what I mean? But you can't keep up with it. There's a different one all the time, different strains all the time. That's what bugs do. They mutate. So there is one theory that says we have to be exposed to them, right, in order to build immunity against them. Right? You can be exposed to it naturally as well. If there's no life-threatening reason why you can't have the flu, then it's a hard argument for me to understand why you would do it. Because I would rather have natural immunity for a long period of time, right? No way. I truly respect all you say. No, I know, but I'm just saying I know you're not trying to kick me off. I'm just saying that I will get, if I go off on my tangent here, they're going to be like, sorry, Pingle, you're out. I don't want to do that. Rheumatologist says to avoid the pandemic one. Yep. Great. I'm glad for your rheumatologist. That's awesome. Because I agree with that. But then again, there's a lot of things that are personal decisions. Our health is our own personal decision, by the way, right? So we often lean to the doctors to tell us what to do. That's not our job. Our job actually isn't to tell you what to do. Our job is to provide options for what you can do. That's a huge difference. A lot of people say, oh, doc, what can I do? What can I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And my answer is, well, here's the pros, here's the cons, here's your situation. Here are 3 or 4 viable options that I see you could do. How do you feel about that? Pass it back to you. Well, doc, I'm concerned about this. I've heard this, I've heard that. What do you think of that? Well, so here's the side of that. You've got this option, this option, this option. Here's the pros and the cons. How do you feel about that? Does that help explain it? Yeah. Now I'd like to talk about these options. Our job as physicians is to have an interaction with you, to educate, to guide, to help you come up with a decision that feels good for you in your heart, because ultimately you're the one that's going to have to do the work, right? So I could sit up here and I could say, hey, just like I was saying earlier, dancing can reduce dementia. If you hate dancing and you're just not going to do it, it doesn't matter how much I tell you to do it, you're not going to do it. So what's the point, right? So it's an interaction. Do you like dancing? No, doc, I hate dancing. In fact, I hate music. I never want to hear it. It makes me mad. Okay, well then I'm going to have to come up with another dialogue, aren't I? I'm going to be like, all right, that's cool, man. Like, let's find something else, right? That does the same thing. So our jobs as physicians are to educate, to do no harm and to educate. That's our job. We have the knowledge to share, but there's so many different ways you can approach every single health condition out there. So many different ways. So I think we need to bring back the patient advocates, right? You. What are you comfortable doing? I have a couple clients that I love because I'm like, well, you really need to clean up your diet. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to. I'm like, okay, well then here's the thing. Within the framework that you're providing me with this diet or lack of exercise or whatever, here's what I can do, and it'll get you to here. If you want to take it to here, you're going to have to do this, but that's on you. I'm not going to judge you for not wanting to do it. That's on you. As long as you understand how far you can get and you're okay with that, then I'm okay with that. Because sometimes people don't want to do everything, right? So on that front of the vaccines, if there's not a back and forth conversation like that, that's a problem for me. Make sense? Sorry for the controversial question. All right. I asked the questions on Instagram. So let me head over there and then I'll come back to Susan's questions on Facebook. Okay. You guys are great. Thank you for letting me go off on that without going off on that. Tips for having an unmedicated birth. Oh, cool. I had 2 unmedicated births. I mean, I shouldn't say unmedicated because I did take valerian root during the first one because the contractions were so strong and I was kind of freaking out because it was my first baby. So I did take valerian, which is an herb. Tips for an unmedicated birth. First of all, you have to commit. I mean, that's the number one. I have no doubt if I would have been birthing my babies in a hospital, and I didn't, I birthed both of them. Here's a little known fact about me. I delivered both my babies in my kitchen in a hot tub with no medication. The first one took 27 hours. The second one took 3 days, but it was like 4 hours on, 8 hours off, 4 hours on, 8 hours. So I think in total it was maybe 12 hours of labor, but it was like on and off over 3 days. No medications, but I did use water. So number one, you have to commit. I have no doubt if I would have been in the hospital, they would have induced me and the induction would have caused more pain and they would have had to do some sort of pain management or epidural. I know where it would have gone because no doctor in a hospital will let a baby go for 27 hours. They say risk of infection. Well, my baby was moving along beautifully. I think the one thing that was holding it back, if I'm honest, was me, because I was scared. I was a little, it was my first baby. I didn't know what I was doing. So I think I wasn't necessarily as relaxed as I should have been. And I think that delayed the birth a little bit. I don't think it's because the baby had a problem. He didn't. He was actually ridiculously healthy. He actually came out and smiled at me, Cameron, which is insane because they're not supposed to be able to smile. He full on smiled. I have a picture of it. He was like, hi. So I know they would have induced me. So I had to commit to that. I also had a midwife that I trusted 100%. She was amazing. And she was very communicative with me, just like I was talking about with physicians and having a relationship. She was very back and forth, lots of conversations. I knew that if she wasn't worried, I didn't need to be worried. And she was not worried. And she kept telling me, you're fine. We keep going. We just keep going. You just got to relax because you got to get this baby out. You just got to relax. So the second one, I was a little scared by the process of how it was starting and stopping, but I knew I could do it. Number one, right? And it's also a lot of breathing techniques. It's a lot of commitment. A lot of people can't do that. A lot of people can handle pain. It was ridiculously painful. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it's the worst pain I've ever felt. It was also the coolest freaking experience I've ever done in my entire life. Those moments changed me as a person, as a mom and a human. To be able to push that baby out and do it on natural endorphins was incredible. And there is a point where the pain goes away, because it's not goes away, but it's like it becomes bearable because you're just in it. You're like, let's do this. Let's get this baby out. So tips would be, you have to be willing to commit to it. And you need to have someone on your side that knows if it's a true emergency that can get you to where you go. If something would have gone wrong, I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that my midwife would have gotten me to a hospital, and I would have followed her guidance 100%, because I knew if it got to that point, it was absolutely necessary. So you need to have an advocate, right? And you need to have commitment. We want to hear you, Dr. Jake. All right, Dr. Jake, bring on Dr. Jake. I hope those will show up in my comments. Ways to combat bloating. Do we know why the bloating's happening? Come back and tell me why it's happening. If you haven't identified why it's happening, I can't tell you how to combat it yet. Tips for finding a local naturopath. Yeah, in fact, I have a comment on here too about the birth real quick. Welcome the pain. I learned that on my 4th. Yeah, you have to welcome it. So there's something about pain that's really interesting. Pain is a signal that you're alive, right? And that something's going on. Now, in a birth scenario, you know why you're in pain, right? And I think a lot of the times we have pain in other areas, let's say in our elbow, in our back, in our neck, and whatever, and we get mad at it. But what we really need to do is say, why do we have this pain? My thighs right now are burning. They hurt. I can't get down the stairs. It's because I overextended myself at hip hop. Okay, I'm okay with that then, right? You get a piece of that because you know why the pain is there. So if you're someone who's in pain and you don't know why, that's what's making you mad. You got to figure out why so you can figure out what to do. Yeah. Tips for finding a local naturopath. Yeah. So first of all, I want to use the word naturopath. I want to talk about the word naturopath real quick. Naturopath could mean a lot of different things. Naturopathic doctor means something else. So first of all, I would find a naturopathic doctor, right? Now, some of us who have graduated from naturopathic medical schools go to states where they can't call themselves a doctor because of state regulations. So what you would want to do is you want to ask, where did they graduate from? Did they graduate from an accredited naturopathic medical school? And there's only a few of them. If they got it on an online platform as a certification, that's different. So naturopath could just mean that they did an online course, learned herbs and naturopathic philosophy, and now they're treating. It could also mean that we went to a 4-year accredited naturopathic medical school. So first of all, if you're looking for a naturopathic doctor, even if they can't call themselves a doctor in that state, they should have graduated from a 4-year naturopathic medical school, right? Most of us have taken board exams. Even if you're going to move out of state, you still take board exams locally. In places here like Arizona, we're allowed to call ourselves a doctor. So if you're in a state where it is licensed, you can distinguish with the word doctor, but in some unlicensed states, you might have to do some research. Naturopathic.org has quite a few. I'll be honest, I'm not listed on that because I don't want to pay the fee. There's some of us who are just like, we don't want to pay all these fees to all these places to be listed. So it's a good place to start. Google. Any good naturopathic physician will probably have some sort of Google profile or website. And then it's looking at their credentials. And then it's also looking at their philosophy and what they love to treat. You know, if you come to me and you say, hey, Dr. P, I want you to treat my bladder cancer, I'm not the right doctor for you, right? That's not what I treat. But if you come to me and you say, man, I'm tired, I really want to level up my health, I can tell stress is having an impact, my endocrine system's a mess, I really want someone to guide me and inspire me and motivate me and teach me and help me be my best version of myself, I'm your gal, right? So we all kind of have our different areas. So find someone that you find the local area, who's in your local area, and look for people that resonate with you, people that are talking about the things that are important to you. And then if you do meet with them and they're not what you expected, then find another one. Right? Did we catch up on Instagram? You guys are quiet today too. I only have 5 more minutes. So if you have any pressing questions, you're like, oh, I really want to ask, Instagram's caught up. You'd be the next one. I'm going to hop over to Facebook to answer some of these questions. Okay, guys. If I'm still on Facebook after all this. Address dopamine, please. Okay. 82 and a lot of issues that may be related to. So one thing to think about dopamine and serotonin have a relationship. Okay. So if you have high dopamine, then you need to look at things that will build serotonin. So there's a lot of great things that build serotonin nutritionally. Vitamin C, vitamin B6, magnesium, proper gut flora, right? Doing things that bring you joy. So if you're 82, I'm hoping to hear that you're doing a lot of things that bring you joy, Susan, because why not, right? Like, what do you love to do? Social interaction, those are things that give us a balanced neurotransmitters, right? So really having an understanding of the nutritional status of your body is going to be critical here. And how inflammatory areas of the body are going to be really critical here. And then getting that balance between dopamine and serotonin leveled out. Cortisol and stress plays a huge role in that pathway. Deficiency of B vitamins, which is ridiculously common the older we get, has a huge role in serotonin production, dopamine management, all of these types of things. So that's where I would start. It's about balance. And it's about learning how to support the pathways that balance out those other pathways. So really good nutritional testing, adrenal testing, knowing the blood sugars are in line, making sure that your minerals, not only for serotonin, but also for bone health, are there, doing things that bring you joy, community, social interaction. These are all ridiculously important for those pathways. Maria says, having a strong immune system is our best defense against disease. Thank you so much for always helping us by sharing such great info. Thank you for listening. That's so sweet. Thank you. I noticed I don't get bloating when I take corn out of my diet, and onions, slight allergies to them. Yeah, corn's a big one that we overlook. You know, we tend to think gluten and dairy, and that's true, and soy and eggs sometimes, but we very rarely remember that corn isn't really metabolized by our body, right? It doesn't give us anything. I always laugh when people are like, oh, here's your veg, especially at school. They're like, well, the vegetable today is corn. I'm like, what? What are they getting out of that? It's just going to come right back out again. I mean, everyone knows that, right? There's no nutritional value in that corn. So I don't have a problem with people cutting out corn at all. It's also put into a lot of processed foods when it doesn't need to be as well. What is glutathione for? So glutathione is made by our body, and it helps us detoxify toxins, right? It's basically an antioxidant and helps keep the health of our cells and our immune system strong. So many of us are deficient in glutathione, and a lot of that has to do with pathways, which I'm not going to go into right now because of the time, but we can talk about it next time. But the MTHFR pathways where we are exchanging nutrients for other nutrients in order to trigger other things. So we have a lot of pathways in our body that are in a circle. And all these, if you ever remember the Krebs cycle from high school, like all these little things that input into the circle and kind of go around, glutathione involves a circle. The maintenance of it recalls a circle. So if anywhere along that circle you have a deficiency, you can have a deficiency in glutathione. Glutathione is imperative for our immune health. It really is. And for anti-aging and for cancer prevention and for toxin removal. So if you are not making your own, or if that pathway is downregulated, you have to look at that circle. And you have to put in all the pieces that got to go in the circle in the right order. That's hard to do by yourself. So having a doctor that understands those circles and knowing how to interpret where you need those inputs would be important to produce your own glutathione. Here's the other thing. It's really hard to get actual glutathione in an oral supplement. So you'll spend all this money. Here's a good money saver for you. You all listening out? Do you want a money saver? I'll give you one. Spend all this money on these glutathione supplements, and you pop them and you dissolve them and you do whatever, and they're supposed to change your life. Well, guess what? They don't absorb through the blood-brain barrier very well, hardly at all, actually. If you're going to do it IV, like in a Myers cocktail, you'll get better output from that. But you can save yourself a ton of money by giving your body the precursors to glutathione and repairing that circle so that you can make your own glutathione. So I use N-acetylcysteine, which is an amino acid, which are the building blocks of glutathione. And if you have enough B vitamin and you have, if you're taking your mineral and you're taking your B vitamins and you're, taking liver support and things like that, you can actually make your own glutathione for a lot cheaper. Another difficult question. Okay. Would love to hear more about glutathione next time as well. Okay. Cool. Am I still on Instagram? Because I got a text. And sometimes it knocks me off. Am I still there? It was actually Dr. Jake, so I'm telling him that. Good, we're still here. Okay, I got to wrap up anyway. Sometimes when I get a text, it knocks me off. Another difficult question. Should I get a colonoscopy? My primary doctor is always pressuring this area, but with no family history of symptoms, why must I get this? Don't put yourself at risk if answering questions from, it's interesting because I've had a couple patients recently that got infections from a colonoscopy and I'm like, what? So, look, there's always a role for prevention and screening, right? But there's also other ways to screen for colon cancer. And I think I would start with some of the blood occult type testing like Cologuard. I would also really be looking at inflammatory markers, overlapping diseases. There's a lot of different risk factors for that. So I do think it's kind of individualized. It's like, people are like, well, should I get mammograms? Well, there's sometimes where you need to, because there's something there that needs to be looked at. Now, should they be the screening mechanism? I don't know. I'm really leaning more towards like what Dr. Simmons is doing with QT imaging, or, self-breast exams. I have a patient who's had breast cancer multiple times and they're always found by self-breast exams. So there's a lot of value in finding things by paying attention to your body as well. With that said, I don't think it's not bad to get one. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, no, you know what I mean? I think looking at risk factors is really important though, anytime. Okay, guys, I love that I'm getting more questions now, but guess what? It's 10 o'clock and I got to go. So I'll see you next week. I promise. I do have another week where I'll be at the beach. I don't know if I'll go live. Maybe I will. But I'll be here next week. And if you want to sign up for my free 5-day challenge, I want to see you all in it. I want to dance with you. Let me dance with you. And we're going to learn. It's not just dancing, guys. There's 4 days where we're going to learn about nutrition. We're going to learn about movement. We're going to learn about mindset shifts and some tools that you can do to help shift your mind to stress. And we're going to learn about supplement. How to read your supplement label, and are you wasting your money? So we have a bunch of really cool things. And then there's a masterclass at the end on how to 10x your life and your energy. So I would love to have you all in it. It is free, no cost. So go to my link in bio, sign up for the 5-day reboot, and let's do this. And I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.